Way back in 2005, two brothers set off on a road trip that would save the world and change television.
Ernie and Bert?
No. For 15 seasons and 327 episodes, Supernatural took audiences on a wild ride of family, fate, and faith with a rocking soundtrack and a seriously cool car.
But that was then, Bobo, and this is now. And yes, the show has quote-unquote ended, but we're not quite done with the journey.
No, we're not.
And that's why we're watching it all over again, or for Rob and me, for the first time,
That's right.
diving deep into every episode of Supernatural with the fine folks who made it. And we're taking you along for the ride.
Whether you like it or not. I'm Rob Benedict. I played Chuck Shirley, a.k.a. God.
Spoiler!
Yeah, it is a bit of a spoiler, but hey, spoilers are fair game here.
Fine. And I'm Richard Speight Jr., and I played the Trickster, also known as the Archangel Gabriel, and I did a little bit of Loki work in there.
Okay, you know we're running out of time.
Okay, well, we'll be talking about the entire series, so whatever we say, accept it. You've been warned.
So buckle up and settle in.
Because this, my friend, is Supernatural, then and now.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Rob Benedict.
And I'm Richard Speight Jr.
And we're here to talk about episode 110 of Supernatural. It's called Asylum.
I'm scared already.
I'm scared too. Asylums are scary.
Yeah, man. Not a toe-tapping fun place to be. By the way, this is a toe-tapping fun place to be because we have two fantastic guests today.
My toe is tapping already.
Yeah, Guy Norman B., who was directed this episode and then directed several more Supernaturals as the years went on, and Todd Aronauer, who was, involved with the show from the pilot. Yeah, from the pilot. He's a producer on the show, oversaw all of post-production. Both fascinating guests, buddies of each other, friends of ours.
That's right.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah, it's great to have them in the room with us.
Yep.
A lot of people say, "Are you in the room with people or on Zoom?" It's back and forth, but as much as possible, we're in the room. So we're actually in the room with these guys.
Yeah, we're either in the room or Zoom, so we just call it the Resume.
The Resume. So resuming, episode Asylum, episode 110. Sam and Dean catch wind of a cop and wife being killed, and so they go to investigate. Turns out the cop was recently at an abandoned asylum. Local legend says is haunted.
Listen, it's not a giant newsflash that the abandoned asylum is haunted.
Right.
I kind of feel like that kind of comes with...
Abandoned asylum? You had me at abandoned asylum?
Yeah, I think it's just part of the thing.
Well, guess what? They're right. It actually is haunted.
Oh.
It's haunted by patients who died in a riot years ago.
Ugh.
The head psychiatrist, Dr. Sanford Ellicott, was experimenting on patients.
That's never, see, right there.
It's never, again,
no.
Red flag.
They don't like that.
And in the experimenting, he's pushing their rage as a type of therapy.
Again.
Not good.
That's not in the textbooks.
No, not in an asylum. And he's one of the spirits. He's one of the head ghosts that's haunting people. He's getting in real-life people's heads and making them do horrible things like kill themselves and their wives. So Sam and Dean do their thing. They rescue a young couple trapped in the asylum and burn the deceased bones as a way of getting rid of the ghosts.
Good for them.
Yeah. But not before being a bit haunted and messed with themselves.
Well, that comes with the territory. Now, Robbie, it's review time. Robin Rich's
Review time.
Unfettered Reviews. Rob, what do you think of the episode?
Let me check my notes.
Oh, boy. Snooze fest.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was very scary.
Yeah.
Very scary. I really like this one. I love a good haunted asylum. We get to see some of Sam's start to have kind of psychic abilities. We see that he has visions and things that we saw in the last episode, episode 9. But in episode 10, we're going on vibes. He's getting a bad feeling about things.
I thought this episode was great just because the whole asylum idea is super creepy. The set they had for the asylum, which we both know is an abandoned asylum.
That's actually haunted.
For real up in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It was so cool. So, it's so much better than they didn't build some set. They went out to that building.
Right.
And you could tell. It's just super creepy.
It's creepy. Yeah, no, I bought it. And, there's a scene where Sam goes in and talks to the psychiatrist's son.
I loved that.
That guy was great. One scene.
That guy was great. And also, I loved that scene because we don't know what happened in that room.
No.
He says something about Dean. Again,
and that's what I love about this show. It's actually, season 1, people always say it's Monster of the Week, but there's still other things going on. Like Sam has issues with the way that he was raised, and does he have issues with Dean that go way back later in the episode when Sam's possessed by the doctor. He rages out at Dean, and then later apologizes. But
but at that point, with the apology, I love that. Sam's like, Dean, do we need to talk about this? And I'm thinking, dude, you just hated on your bro and tried to shoot him in the face.
Yeah.
I don't think Dean's out of place, kind of hanging on to that for a hot sec.
Yeah. Let's not talk about it right now.
Let's not put the toothpaste back in the tube.
I don't know yet.
So fast.
Yeah, no, he does. He hands him a gun that Sam doesn't know is not loaded, and Sam tries to shoot him in the face. But
I know.
Possessed when he does that. But there's issues with Sam. Sam's working through some stuff.
So we like it. The end of the Robin Rich review is...
We liked it.
2 full beards. That's our review.
Yeah, 2 full beards. We give this one 2 full beards. I just want to say, just to finish my thought, he goes into the psychiatrist's office and brings up the idea that, hey, was your dad a psychiatrist too? And the guy's like, we're not going to talk about that. That's when we know something's up.
Yeah, sure do.
Anyway, it's a good one. It's a classic one. And we are so lucky that in this episode of our podcast, we get to talk to producer Todd Aronauer and director of the episode, Guy Normandy.
Great journeyman TV guys, and both heavily involved in Supernatural from the early days.
Yeah. Should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's go. We got such a treat today, a doubleheader of gentlemen to interview.
Original gangsters.
Yeah, that's true. Director Guy Normandy.
Yes, exactly.
Hey.
And associate producer Todd Aronauer.
Hello, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Really good, really good. It's such a treat to have you both here. Again, like Rich said, 2 of the original gangsters of Supernatural.
Especially you, Todd, because Todd, let's just start right here. You are one of the few people that started on the pilot.
Yeah, one of the few crew members that started on the pilot. And of crew, there might be 1 or 2 people that stayed till the end. One is Mr. Bruce Gorman, assistant editor of ours. But the pilot was shot in L.A., so actual production crew members weren't able to stay with the show throughout the run.
Right. Now, what'd you do? Because I know you have a history with Kripke.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I can only tell you some parts. I've been sworn to secrecy on others.
Others are not podcastable.
A lot of bleeping in this episode.
Yes. So I graduated from college and moved out here from The Ohio State University.
Oh, wow.
So from Columbus, I packed up my Toyota Corolla and drove out here. One of my buddies, a good friend of mine, who was also a mutual friend of Eric Kripke's, he introduced us in New Year's, 96, 97.
Wow.
And... let's see, January 1st, I slept on Kripke's couch after hanging out for a couple of days. And
over-imbibing.
And we stayed in touch and contact, and all of his friends became my friends. To this day, they're some of my closest friends, that the first people that I met when I moved out here.
Awesome.
And so he invited you, when Supernatural took off, or when the pilot picked up, he invited you to be a part of it?
Yeah, I was working on another show through Warner Brothers, but it was for Fox. It was called Johnny Zero. I was working on that, and he said, I got the show. I'd love for you to come aboard, and are you available? And I said, I'll make myself available. Tell me where and when, and dropped everything and jumped on board. And it was a fantastic ride with Nutter and McGee and his crew.
Yeah.
Right.
So at this point, you're associate producer. And so what goes on? Like when the show gets picked up, they're up in Vancouver. Do you go back and forth, or you're mostly in L.A.?
So pilot was L.A., and then post-production for the series remained in L.A. So we were in Burbank. Our offices were set up in Burbank along with the writers, producers. Production was up in Vancouver. And occasionally I'd go up for different reasons, whatever the case may be, for daily stuff, or visual effects stuff, or insert units, and got to meet the crew that way, and it's been a great ride. Everybody just became family so quickly.
A little inside baseball question for you. So for fans of the show listening to this, even if they don't know the show, but they don't know Hollywood so well, what was your day-to-day task? Like as an associate producer, what were you tasked to do?
So associate producer is a title, finished the series as a producing title. So I was the head of post-production for the show. So along with Phil Scretia, who also dealt with production side and directing, I was the go-to for budget, schedules, and visual effects, everything in between, dealing with editorial facilities, vendors.
Everything post went through you then? I mean, everything in the post-production process came across your desk?
Yes.
That's why our paths only crossed with you after the fact, after we've done the shooting.
I think I saw Todd a couple of times when I was actually directing and going into edits. I would kind of lean in and say hi, when his LA offices.
We also have with us director of this episode and many to come, Guy Norman B. Hey, Guy, how are you?
Good, man. This is a trip down memory lane.
It really is.
Because that, we were saying earlier, it was 15-something years ago, and I remember very clearly, the good timestamp is I remember pushing my 9-month-old daughter around in a stroller through Metro Town or something, and that 9-month-old daughter now turned 17 years old in a week.
It's crazy.
Is that amazing? Yeah.
Just crazy.
She wasn't walking then, and now she drives like a madman, mad woman.
Yeah.
Crazy girl.
Yeah, no, totally. We associate the show with the age of our children. I have the same. I have a son who was born in 2004. He just turned 18. Yeah, crazy. So you directed this episode. How did you get on board?
I remember getting a call from my agent at the time, and she said there's this new show in Vancouver. David Nutter, I think, recommended me because being a camera operator early in David's career, I remember him and I hitting it off. And then I remember also I think it was a year earlier, I had an overall kind of general meeting with Eric Kripke about Tarzan and Jane and being being the producer director. And I eventually didn't get that job, but he offered me an episode. And unfortunately, I think it got canceled before I even got to go to fly to Toronto to do it. But so Eric knew me and David Nutter knew me. And so the way it was described to me is sort of classic retellings of these classic, the prom date that hitchhikes on her way home and the guy comes to check on her the next day and the mother says, well, she died a year ago last night, ooh, and Boogeyman and, all those great classic urban myths. And so I was into it. And I always say I'm not a huge horror movie fan, but then again, The Shining, Jaws, of course, maybe 3 or 4 of my top 10 movies that I'm a fan of are horror movies. So I embraced it and was excited to do it. A new show and with some friends that I knew already.
Can you describe a little bit for people who may not know what a Steadicam is? How that would be different from, say, putting a camera on a dolly.
Steadicam is, everyone kind of refers to it, or at least at that time, as new technology, but it had been around since the 70s. Rocky, The Shining. Anytime you see a floating camera point of view that is smooth, but it goes through places that a dolly can't fit, like a doorway or upstairs. That's usually Steadicam. So it's a hybrid between handheld, because you are holding it, but you're not holding it on your shoulder. You're kind of carrying it away from you with a spring-loaded articulating arm. And it's like learning a musical instrument because you have to have practiced a lot before you jump in and start selling yourself as a camera operator, because if you get those kind of, we call them swimmy horizons, you can literally make the audience seasick, because that's the hallmark of bad Steadicam, is it calls attention to itself. So by the time I did ER, I again had 5 years of camera experience and got pretty good at it, and I just loved it. It was the sort of the perfect cross between music, which I grew up loving, and of course cinema. It combined everything I liked. It was technical. I was an artist. I got really close with actors, and I realized I want to direct. And so even back then, I knew I wanted to be a director.
So walk me through that segue. How did you go from doing what you're doing to directing?
98, I got a call from John Wells and Chris Chulak. And, at the time, because ER was so big and they knew I wanted to direct, we sort of bartered a little bit, which is help us set the look and the feel of one of our pilots coming up, and we'll let you direct one of the episodes if it gets picked up. So in 98, we did a big 2-hour with Lou Diamond Phillips, which we had all the hopes in the world didn't get picked up. In 99, they did 2. They sent me the scripts to West Wing and Third Watch. And Third Watch was in New York City, cops, firemen, paramedics, shootouts, car chases, fire, of course. And while West Wing was beautifully written, and I knew the cast, and Tommy Shalami, the director of that pilot, really kind of twisted my arm and said, "Hey, man, we're going to do ER, but in the West Wing of the White House." I wanted to do the crazy shit in, of course, New York City. And Chris Chulak, again, who became my mentor, was going to direct that pilot. And he said, "Come and help me set the look. We're already put for 12, which I didn't really know what that meant, but it meant that they already had made a deal with Warner Brothers to do 13 episodes. And I'd always heard if you can spend a year of your life in New York City and move there, do it, because there's nothing like that energy. And, you don't have to drive anywhere, cabs, subways, walking, whatever. So I said, here's a good chance to do that. And I directed episode 13 at what was like December of 99, the beginning of 2000, and I kind of haven't looked back. And then, sort of got a really great agent and started booking other shows outside of the Wells camp.
Amazing.
Ahoy, Rich Spade here. Hope you're enjoying the episode, but we got to pull over for a second for some messages. Hey, this is Richard Spate. You know what? It's 2024. It's a brand new year, and I bet you made some New Year's resolutions, and I bet one of them was to eat healthier. Well, you can get cranking on that resolution right now, my friend, with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue. I'm getting tired just talking about it. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you will have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart this resolution off right. Forget frantic lunch prep and rush dinner making. That stinks. Factor's 2-minute meals, yes, I said 2 minutes, are your secret weapon in the new year. You get to fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals all delivered right to your door. It doesn't get any easier than that. And Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on the schedule. So I know what you're asking, Rich, how do I tap into this Factor magic? You head to factormeals.com/SPN1050 and use code SPN1050 to get 50% off. That's a lot off. That's code SPN1050 at factormeals.com/SPN1050 for 50% off. Make that resolution happen now and make it happen at a discount. Fantastic food that's healthy and delicious and delivered right to my door. Now that is how you start the new year off right. Thanks for listening. Now back to the episode.
So it's now 2005, and you get brought on to direct this episode of Supernatural Asylum.
Yes.
Do you remember? Well, first of all, you had a story about how you and Todd here met. What is that story?
Well, Todd and I met on Supernatural, but there's something that happened about 5 years ago. I'm a huge comedy fan, and there was a new show on TV that my best friend was the camera operator on, and said, I'm doing this show, and we're laughing our ass off every day. When it airs, you got to watch it. It's John Lithgow, and it was called Trial and Error. So half hour, I'm watching it. I'm crying, laughing. There's some great. If you guys remember watching it, it's great. Or find it if you can. I noticed that the star is a young actor named Nicholas D'Augusto, and I'm like, I know Nicholas. That was my male lead that we flew up from L.A. on Asylum. Great kid. I'm real excited for him. So I pay attention to the credits. There's the creator and the writer is a guy named Jeff Astroff. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I look him up on Twitter, and I follow him, and he follows me right back. And I said, Jeff, I love your show. It's just laugh out loud, crying. It's so great. To make a long story short, Nicholas D'Augusto, was one connection, but then I realized somehow or another through Twitter that Jeff Astroff is Todd Aronauer's brother-in-law.
No way.
He's married to Jeff's sister. Anyway, so there's that 1 degree of separation in Hollywood. Yeah, so anyway, interesting story.
Wow.
I also was a post-producer for season 2 of Trial and Error.
No,
all right,
Which they shot in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
And my buddy was bummed because he's an LA-based camera operator, so he's like, I'd love to do that, anyway.
Well, Nicholas is a kind of actor that I loved Election. And he's in Election. That's the first thing when I saw his face. And I looked it up on IMDb, and Election was like his first thing that he did. And then after that, he kept working.
Right.
Such a recognizable face now. Such a baby face, too.
Yeah.
He's kind of always has a baby face.
Rewatching Asylum, looking at his face, I'm like, it looks exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
And he was so stoked. I remember, the director's prepping room was across from this giant in Vancouver on Supernatural, this giant boardroom, conference room. And I remember walking into the director's prepping room and not closing my door and hearing Nicholas talking with this is 2005, talking with his dad and just gushing about, I'm having the best time. This is the greatest crew. These guys are so I got to go to a wardrobe fitting. I'm so excited. So he was really into it. And the other great story about that is, I think a year earlier, I'd done a couple episodes of a show called Veronica Mars, and one of my guest stars was a young actress named Ilona Tal. And I loved her to death, and so when I realized we were going to fly up the male and female leads from L.A., I threw my suggestion to the casting director about Ilona, and they go, oh, we love Ilona, awesome. So that we're kind of making that deal, and I guess because she's Israeli, but lives in the U.S. obviously, but they couldn't get the paperwork to get her to Canada or something in time. Oh. So she had to drop out, and we got, Brooke Nevin, who was, looking back now, she did a great job. And it worked out to Ilona's advantage because she eventually became like a recurring role.
Bigger character.
Yeah, bigger character. So I kind of, was happy that,
they eventually got her.
They eventually got her and got the paperwork or whatever, and she went to be a Harvell, I think it was, right? That character.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a couple little quick trivia stories.
Good trivia.
So Guy, you get up there to direct, right? You've got your cast, you do all those pre-steps. You are the first guy to sort of become a recurring director in the show. Like you were aside from Kim Manners, who became the PD, you were the first guy that started coming back. My question is, when you started, how well oiled was the machine? When you got up there to direct this episode, what kind of rhythm was going on the set with the crew and all that kind of stuff?
Well, it was pretty cool. I mean, everybody was really excited because I remember, I think my first day of prep, the production manager, line producer at the time came in and said, guys, we picked up. We got a back nine. We're legit. I think it was Cyrus Yavna. And he came in, and so there was like party atmosphere. It's like if we could have or if they could have popped bottles of champagne, they would have. But it launched us into this episode with a great feeling. And I remember, I knew some people already on the crew because I had worked on like True Calling and some other Vancouver-based shows. So I knew the whole prop department. So it was kind of cool. I mean, there was a lot of people. I typically try and go down to the set one of my first days of prep if they're on set, not on stage, and say hi to everybody. So it was like they had already kind of warmed up the people that didn't know me. Like, oh, we're gonna have a great time with Guy. All the good things you want to hear as a guest director. But the interesting thing was I did Asylum, and then I didn't come back to direct again until season 6.
No way.
It was I didn't know Bob or Phil. And I did know Kim Manners very well, and Kim had just been named, I think, or like maybe 2 or 3 episodes before that. Because when the show started, they didn't have a producer director, so Kim they kind of yanked out of retirement and got him to come up and do that show. Me and David Nutter, I go way back with Kim because I had operated for him on some shows, and I print it. He's got the greatest, or he did. The greatest general. Come on, guys! All right, let's kick this in the ass. He was the greatest, and everybody loved that. Obviously, I'm sure everybody's talked on this podcast has fond, great memories of Kim Manners.
Yeah.
So I knew those guys, and it's just one of those things where they call, and if you're not available, they try you again next season, or like in the back nine. If you're not available, they kind of move on. I mean, the interesting thing was I came up for other episodes of other series, and I would have dinner, drinks, whatever, with Jensen and Jared and some of the crew members. So I kept in touch with everybody, and they were like, well, we want to have you come back up. And so eventually, I think on season 6, they shook things up a little bit. Obviously, Eric moved on.
Right.
Sarah kind of took over, and my new agent at the time was friends with Bob Singer. They're both San Francisco Giants fans for whatever that's worth. And right, he says, let me put in a call to Bob because one of my thing when I signed with his agent was, give me a debrief. What shows did you have a great experience on? What? And so I said, kind of as an afterthought, I did this show Supernatural. I know they just got picked up again because I'm friends with all the guys and we text and everything. And I thought I did okay on this episode called Asylum, and I had a great time. And so he made one phone call to Bob and said, Bob just said, yeah, we'll put him back in the roster. And I think I did Family Matters, And then that turned into the West was Gallows Pole and eventually became Frontierland. So I got back in the fold in season 6, but for like 4 seasons, there was like, nothing.
Interesting.
But that's how the business works.
Sure.
Well,
that's how Supernatural worked. I mean, we worked on it early, and then and then you kind of circles back around for you.
Yeah, and you don't take that stuff personally because it is just where they reach out or you change agents, reps. And
sure.
You just fall out of favor.
That is one of the things I think is interesting about network TV that not everybody understands is that there's a slew of directors that come through the door. You get a writer's room with a lot of consistent writers in the room over the years. That might change, but there's always some old guard in there to bring up the new guard. Yeah. They're actors. You can hold onto a cast for a long time. Sometimes there's changes, but overall there's some again, stalwart figures in the cast. The directing can be really volatile in terms of who's coming in and who's coming out. You can have a season, and this is one thing I never understood about the business. If season 1, all the directors are great, it's not just as easy to bring them all back because they all go on to do other things.
Right. Yeah, you're not. They call it the golden handcuffs, which is being a producer director. And one of my first gigs, Third Watch, they made me a producer director, which kept me in New York. At the time, I was a new director. I mean, experienced camera operator and been on sets all around the world and everything, but it was a great experience. But a lot of times the director doesn't want that because you want to be footloose and fancy free and jump on other shows and live in different camps. But yeah, I mean, that's, it's a 3-week commitment, 7 days of prep, 8 or 9 days of shooting. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about Asylum is I think it was a 9-day shoot. My last day was with a second unit, but I think 7 or 8 of those days were completely 100% at Riverview, which is, as we all know, the decommissioned and true insane asylum
that's rumored to have ghosts.
Yeah.
So let's just reiterate that. Where this thing was shot was actually a former insane asylum in Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah, and if you do anything in Vancouver, even if you don't shoot there, you will scout it. I think everything in the dozens and dozens of episodes I've done in Vancouver, at least one day. Again, I may not shoot there, but I definitely have scouted it for pretty much everything I've ever done, and so it was perfect. So it was kind of written around that location because I think John Scheiben, who co-wrote Asylum, had been on X-Files. And so he goes, man, Riverview is perfect for this. So we showed him some photos. Of course, Jerry Wanick said, I'm going to, this all up and we'll do these old rusty gurneys. And
yeah.
So, I can't, I'm the president of the Jerry Wanick and Serge Leduc fan club, as we all are.
Yeah.
So Jerry and I just had a blast with it. And, if you remember looking back at that episode, shooting on film, low light.
Yeah.
It's one of the most gorgeous things, one of the things I'm most proud of. And Todd's probably got tons of great stories about working with Serge.
Yeah, well, and Todd, with this episode, there's obviously you've got a lot of ghosts, effects with that. How was that in post-production, putting that together, and how did that change once technology matured and we went digital later in the show?
It's actually an interesting episode to ask that question because right at, I think this was like episode 10, and then Skin was either just before or just after it.
Yeah, I think just before.
And this was during the run of the first season studios, networks tend to do this on first season shows. First season shows in general don't run smooth until you're near the end. And we were thrown into a situation where the first few episodes, one script was not quite ready to go, another script got put into production earlier, and also after we shot, there was some shuffling around, which it caused a couple of episodes right there in the middle, 9, 10, 11, 12, around there, to have really fast turnarounds in post. So Asylum was one of the episodes that had maybe 12 days of post.
And I just want to say, for people who might not know the term turnaround, meaning it had to go from footage to a airable episode very quickly.
Yeah. So the turnaround, when I say 12 days of post, that means that refers to from when we get the last day's footage until we have to deliver, final delivery. So within those 12 days, those were work days, not including weekends, but you have to go through, the editor's got to get a cut, a director comes in, they got to get their cut.
Good Lord.
Producers have to get their cut, and then they send it to the studio, who gives notes, send it to the network, who gives notes. And for a first season show, pretty much early on.
Lots of cooks in the kitchen.
There are, and a lot of times the studio wants 2 passes before it goes to the network. Then the network wants 2 passes of notes. So we knew ahead of time that this schedule was coming up, and you really don't have any options on giving one cut more time than the other. I just had to say to the studio and network, the only way to do this is for you guys to get one cut, which happens often these days because the schedules are so tight, and you have to cut down the edit. The editor basically has to have his cut done as soon as he receives the dailies. And Anthony Pinker was the editor on this, great editor.
Yeah, good dude.
And I don't know how he did it, but he assembled this thing so quickly. And I think it was this episode, I think I called you up, Guy, and I said, you have about a half a day for your cut. And normally for an hour show, DGA rules, you need to give the director their time in the edit room.
Like 3 days
which
or
is
something,
4
right?
days.
4 days.
4 days for an hour-long show. Editors should get at least 2 days, and they generally need more also. Everybody needs more days. You could cut any show. You could be in there for days for any individual cut. So I had to call Guy and say, we don't have 4 days to give you. Can you come in for
2 hours?
Like an afternoon?
Let's grab a cup of coffee and cut the episode.
Yeah, and generally, I mean, sort of my style of directing in general is I used to joke around that, the DJ rules give me 4 days. I usually only need about 4 hours. So I was happy with that, but then I think I went right on to I think it was a show called The Unit, which was L.A., but it was way out in Santa Clarita, and I said, man, I'm not going to be able to even come in. That's just, again, that's the peril of being a freelance director is I may jump on a plane the day after I finish an episode. So I hit the lottery with Anthony, incredible editor. I think we talked on the phone, and that was kind of it. And Ken, and of course, I said to Kim Manners, just help me out. I mean, do your best. And again, here's the guy that just came off of directing 50 of the 200 episodes of X-Files.
Yeah.
So, I knew I was in good hands, and so there you go. I mean,
I think you spoke with Anthony for a little bit, gave him passing notes, and then Anthony just jammed it together, sent it on to the producers, and even the producers, Eric, Bob, Phil.
You got 5 minutes each, guys.
Pretty much. That was it. We got to send it to the studio and network in a day and a half or however much time we had.
They got to generate all those visual effects.
Right. And if you notice, you look at the show, you could count on one hand how many visual effects are noticeable in that show.
Yeah.
That's a huge credit to Guy and the crew and what they did
on set,
in camera, actually during production, and maybe with the help of some of the real ghosts that actually live there.
Exactly,
and they're there.
Really helped out the production.
I have a question about one of the effects because specifically watching it, we watched it yesterday. Preparing for this, there's a shot, Guy, where the guys go down the hall, like they can't find anything creepy yet, and you pan down off and the guy doing the head bit.
Yeah, that was in camera.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's a thing. I mean, it was filmed, so that's an Airflex camera.
Remind me of the film Jacob's Ladder.
Exactly, and there's an Ozzy video or whatever that we kind of referenced, but that was an idea I had, and I said, I think we can do this in camera. Of course, Serge is up for any challenge, and basically what it does is you program that into the camera, and it changes the frame rate and the shutter angle, I think, at the same time. So you, as you make the pan across to the guy that this poor actor, we shoved him underneath a gurney or some kind of examination table. We had him just shake his head, just regular speed, but what the film camera does in post, and so that's all in camera. And I haven't done that,
dude. It looks phenomenal. I'm sitting there watching it, going, I know what year this was made. That's a seamless effect.
Yeah.
And that answers it. It's in camera.
And that entire effect is just a camera speed thing.
Yeah, you dial it in. You tell the camera, I want to go from this frame rate, 24 frames per second, to, I guess it's like 12 frames per second or maybe 6 frames per second in 5 seconds.
Are you burying it in the move?
Yeah, so as you make the pan, you push the button. And so as you make the pan, the shutter angle changes too, which gives you the smear, which makes the head kind of smear back and forth, so it's not so sharp.
Creepy as hell.
So creepy and so effective.
Yeah.
And what about the ghosts going in and out? Is that shooting an empty room and then shooting a person and just sort of, is that an editing?
You mean when they shoot them and
they're kind of in and out? They're kind of like
the glitch.
The glitch.
Yeah,
the glitch.
The glitchy ghost.
Yeah, I think that's all done in post, and it's also, I think, not necessarily something you need to send out to the special effects house. I think that's an editor.
We did that a couple of different ways. The first few times we did that, certainly in the pilot, there were a number of times with the woman in white, that effect, that look didn't materialize until after. It wasn't always shot with the backplate. It had to be created in post. And there are a lot of things that we sort of manufactured in post initially and then did it correctly after that.
Meaning, when you say doing a backplate, you mean like you'd shoot the background, then you'd put the actor in, take the actor out, so you can layer up the plates on this.
Right. If you have a clean backplate without the actor in it, then you have many more options that you could do with post and visual effects. You could put the actor in, out, and move them around, put somebody else in there.
They could hop. Yeah, I mean, and I remember really trying to go for as much in camera as possible, maybe because we knew we had a short turnaround, but also John Scheiben and Richard Haddam, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, they co-wrote the episode. And in prep, they go, we're going to send you a couple DVDs. Watch these. It's what we're all hopped up on and what was inspiring for us. And one was Shudder, but not the American version, and another one called A Tale of Two Sisters. One's from Bangkok and one's from South Korea. It was like at the height of when The Ring and
right.
And so I watched both those, and all the scary stuff is just real makeup and real in-camera stuff, and it's super, not, I wouldn't say low budget, but it's like, it's not $100 million budget. And so I said, this is the stuff that really scares people. I remember watching one of them on a weekend, middle of the day, bright and sunny day, and it scared the crap. I had to turn it off and go take a walk down Burrard Street for a sandwich or something.
There's something about low-budget horror films that are scary.
And the Asian, that particular, point in time, The Ring, The Grudge, but if you get a chance, I know they were both remade as American movies, but the South Korean A Tale of Two Sisters and the Bangkok version of Shudder are just like textbook. How you can scare people without a lot of money.
Speaking of influences, you said The Shining was an influence of you as a filmmaker. Do you have any of that influence in this episode specifically?
Yeah, I mean, just the floating down the hallways, with Steadicam, of course. Mm-hmm. And, Kubrick was a master of letting things happen in the frame without moving the camera too much, or when you move the camera, make it very subtle. So I liked all that, just kind of like real slow sliding, dolly slides and stuff. I think I was so, into those two movies because the guy sent me the DVDs that was kind of the benchmark. And, of course, The Shining. But, there you go.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my favorites that we've watched so far this episode. You always love a good, scary Asylum episode.
Yeah, I hit the lottery because it was a great script, going in. And we scheduled, Kevin Parks and I, he scheduled it. But we kind of said, here, we're going to... Because the way we did it is we tried not to go to different floors. We tried to make one floor look like many floors because once you shoot out a floor, if you just change the set dressing and do different shafts of light, of course it was easy to pull the old wheelchairs out and put like examination table where a wheelchair was. And you come back the next day, you're in another hallway. So the guys would come around a corner and we'd come back the next day and we'd finish the scene, but it'd be the same floor because we realized once you start moving, 800-pound dollies up and down.
So you just redress the floor.
So we had a plan and we stuck to it. And then, the only funky thing was that 9th day with a completely new crew and trying to maintain the level of smoke. And if you know Serge's work, that atmospheric tube of death, or we used to call it, or whatever, it's very specific. And so that was the only thing. But again, looking back, it all cuts together. You can't really tell what's first or second.
So when they go down in the basement for the end scene where they finally find the evil doctor ghost, is that the same floor?
I think that was on stage. I think we shot that first.
Oh wow!
Is that because they had fire in it or something?
Yeah. And we also knew that after scouting, we couldn't find exactly the place we wanted that would serve the script.
We also needed those shots earlier because those were the ones with the visual effects.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he had to, and Dean goes through the wall there too. Yep. So he gets shot through the wall.
Yeah, that was a big stunt. That was yeah. We were lucky to have amazing stunt doubles for the boys.
Yeah,
we utilized them a lot, as you can tell from 300 episodes of worth of.
I have a question about the. This is the first episode where I realized that when they're shooting ghosts, they're shooting salt. They actually explain that they're shooting salt pellets or something.
Right.
How much of that, when you get a script, both of you really, you had to sort of go into the mind of the writers and Eric and what the Bible says about, you know what I mean, what Eric's Bible says about how you kill ghosts or slow them down or whatever. Do you have to ask questions in terms of like, what are the rules here with ghosts and, like silver bullets with werewolves?
Especially then when the rules are being established.
Yeah.
I think there was just kind of, you flag or mark that in your script and say, look, I just want to make sure we're serving the story right here. Do they disappear, or they just glitch, or they go away and come right back? So I think that's all a part of our extensive set of meetings, as Richard knows. You sit in, and then you combine meetings. You'll have like a stunt meeting that's also visual effects. It's also like special effects. So the special effects.
The first meeting when a script comes out, when the director comes in, you have the concept meeting,
right?
And that's when everybody, all departments are there around the table, or these days are around your laptop monitor.
Around the Zoom.
Yeah.
And everybody is asking every single question that you guys asked and more. What are they wearing? What number day is this? Does it all take place over one day? Do they have a change of clothes? And when they shoot and that disappears, does that leave residual and residue on them?
Yeah, those meetings, that's when everybody goes, okay, I will provide props. We'll say, I will provide the sawed-off shotgun. Visual effects will say, I'll provide the muzzle flash. And so everybody knows what what they've agreed to, and that can change too, because the prop guys will go, if it's all the same, I can just do, as long as you're not going to put the camera or an actor in front of the muzzle of the gun, I can actually do that as a quarter load. I know this is like a very sensitive topic now, but so that's when you get all that cleared out, because when you're shooting on the day, when you go, okay, we're going to do that gag, you don't want somebody to go, well, I thought you guys were doing it.
Well, it's fascinating, too, as you talk about this guy, is that so many of those questions, to your point, Todd, happen day one, afternoon one.
Yeah.
And if you're the guy who got the script the night before, you're like, I don't know yet.
Yeah, you don't. And it's the concept meeting, because you're talking about the concept of these moments. Right. So you come out of this meeting with more questions than answers.
Oh, man.
And a lot of times the writer or the director, wherever that question is directed to, whoever needs to come up with that answer, it's, I'll get back to you. Because there's also going to be rounds of rewrites based on that meeting.
And you might not know where you're shooting it. Like
right.
it's set specific or...
Yeah.
This is the reason actors don't get scripts until after that meeting.
Right.
No, but I'll always talk to wardrobe about, if it's a fight scene, I'll say, it'd be great to put them in a big Carhartt. That way we can pad them. So which is, you get the elbow pads. And so they'll go, okay, well, I'll provide the Carhartt jacket, and hopefully you have a stunt guy in that meeting who says, okay, I've got great pads, they're low profile, and we'll say, well, is it going to be Mike Carpenter or Jared? Well, it'll be both. As soon as Jared gets thrown out of frame, I'm going to cut to Mike Carpenter. So then you need doubles. Well, maybe we need triples. What if it rips? So you get all those things ironed out ahead of time.
Almost over plan for it. Like, I know there are days that I come into work and I have a stunt double for something that I'm like, I think I could probably do that. I'm just falling down or whatever it is. But they dress my stunt double. Yeah. They put a fake beard on him. You know what I mean? It's all done and he's ready to go. And then he doesn't get used, but it's just in case, right?
Yeah. He joins your band, takes your place. The hell, man.
And he's Richard Spade Jr.
Hello, everybody.
It's Rich right next to me. So that's a big part of prep. I mean, prep is almost everything. And I mark up my scripts. I keep the Sharpie highlighter, miniature stick, Post-it note companies in business when I get a script. I mean, a lot of it's done now on scriptation on your iPad, but I still like a physical paper script as well.
I do too.
Me too.
I do too.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about it. But you don't want to be making these questions on the fly.
Right.
I mean, because I remember there's something where Brooke's character, the female lead in Asylum, has to take the sawed-off shotgun and she shoots
at Jensen.
Yeah, and so we get together with special effects and they're on the location, tech scout with us and say, this corner we're gonna we call them squibs. We just squib this corner. We'll run the wires this way. We'll put in 3 hits. A lot of times you'll get it on the first one because once you get it, the corner getting blown off by a shotgun in the story, it's hard to patch up, or they'll say, I need a half hour, and you go, we don't have a half hour. We got it good, right? A camera, you guys happy? B camera. We can do some playback now in digital. We'll actually rewind it. So all that stuff is ironed out because now that's props, visual effects, because they're going to do the muzzle flash, and special effects where they're going to pre-plant those squibs a day ahead of time. Or a lot of times we'll do like a shootout, and you'll do like 3 sections of plywood that you've pre-squibbed from behind that you can move in and out quickly, but all ahead of time, because again, the last thing you want to do, and as a director, you absolutely kill your crew when you go, no, can we, I don't, you can't, it's yes or no, or this is how we're doing it. There's 1,000 ways to do this. This is the way we're doing it right now.
Guys, seriously. Literally.
Such an honor.
Such an honor.
Yeah. Thanks for having
Original
me.
Gangster Todd. Original gangster director guy. You guys are awesome. And, we'll be back to talk for more, because obviously there's 15 years of the show to talk about. And you've been involved in so much of it that your voices are super valuable. So thank you for being here.
Cool.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
This is Jensen, stopping in to say hey and let you know that we've got to take a quick break. Hey, guess what? We're back.
Well, that was great, man. I could have talked to them for hours.
Oh, my gosh. They will be back. We will talk to them more about other things.
Yeah, because they don't go away on this in this series.
No, they've been around for a good chunk of the time of the show's on the air.
Well, just asking Todd about different things he dealt with being in post, and Guy, of course, even his the history of other shows he's worked on, and the Guy thing we talked about it a little bit, but the idea of steady cam operator is not an easy job, and if you go back and you watch the series ER, which a lot of our listeners are younger than that, but if you go and watch it, things that now we take for granted. But the walk down the hallway, the fast-paced walk down the hallway, then the camera whips over and finds a patient in pain or whatever. It's all one shot. That's a Steadicam operator walking backwards down a crowded set. So
there they are.
And he was, one of the OGs of that in the 90s when it became popular in series. All right, let's do our mythology, eh?
Okay, play the theme.
Bum, ba, bum, mythology. It's a creepy asylum.
Damn right it is. That's it, everybody. Thank you for joining.
It is. It's a creepy asylum. It's really, in real life, they've shot a lot of episodes there. I did an episode. Here's a fun fact. I did an episode of a NBC series called Mysterious Ways that we shot there in probably 2000 or 2001. But they do a lot of Vancouver shows shoot there. And as we've mentioned, it really is haunted. While the Roosevelt Asylum is fake, the episode may have been inspired by the real-life events at the asylum, such as Blackwell's Island Asylum.
It sounds like a vacation.
Come to Blackwell's Island Asylum. Check out our beach, our haunted museum, Creedmoor Psychiatric Hospital, or the Athens Lunatic Asylum. Well, that's not.
They're really hammering it home.
It's all in the title there.
It's like the Athens Lunatic Crazy People hovel.
Each one of those actual locations report things such as patient abuse, electroshock, unnecessary lobotomies, and brutal tactics of the late 19th and early 20th century. Other popular horror films that took place in mental hospitals, Session 9, Haunting of Hill House, and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
The only argument I have with that sentence is I'm not sure Session 9 is a popular movie. I don't know that film.
Well, just because you don't know it doesn't mean someone doesn't.
I'm just saying. But Bobo,
yeah,
it's not just about creepy asylums and all. There's other fun little bits of trivia sprinkled throughout the episode. So here we go. Robbie, did you know that the Men's Health magazine that Sam is reading in the psychiatrist lobby features an interview with Jared Padalecki?
That's funny. I only reason I knew that is because I read this sentence, but I read it before I watched the episode, and I looked at it and paused it. Couldn't tell if he was the person on the cover, but he definitely, there's an article of him in it, so that's kind of fun.
Now, here we go. The Riverview Hospital is the location the art department used, and they turned it into the Roosevelt Asylum. It's used a lot in Supernatural. I directed there myself, and it is a real asylum that's now abandoned.
What did you, just out of curiosity for the fans, what did you direct there, shoot there?
I'm trying to remember which episode it was, but it was a coroner's office, the lab.
Oh,
was
right.
Doing an autopsy.
Dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Nigel Tufnell, the alias Dean uses at the bar, of course, is the lead guitarist of Spinal Tap.
This goes up to 11.
That's right.
Rumor has it that Tom Welling was hiding in the back seat of the Impala during some of the scenes. That is literally an unprovable BS internet fact. Another rumor has it that supermodel Cheryl Ladd was over by craft service while they shot the scene.
Cheryl Ladd. That's every reference of yours is 1970s. Rockford, Illinois.
Hey, I loves who I love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Rockford, Illinois isn't a small town. It has a population of over 350,000.
That's it. I'm out. If the show's going to lie to me.
What can I believe?
Yeah, the show's going to lie to me like that.
What else? When Sam shows Dean articles about Roosevelt Asylum in Dad's journal, the facing page has Wendigo information on it.
Ah, there you go.
You got to have a pause button to notice these things.
Yep.
You know, another thing that I'm off the cuff here, adding my own thing that I noticed. He uses a camcorder as they're watching. Sam's holding a camcorder as they walk through the asylum, recording it all.
All right.
10 years later, Sam would be using a phone.
That's right. That's right. Another piece of trivia. I'm going to go off script here as well. In the bar, when Dean goes up to talk to the cop,
yeah,
and Jared pulls him off and shoves him away,
right?
Try to get him out of there. He shoves Dean into a man who's playing pool. That man is Lou Bolo, who was the stunt coordinator on Supernatural for its first 11 seasons.
Yeah, till late in the game.
Yeah.
We love Lou.
Love Lou.
Such a great episode, buddy. And I love this one. And again, I'm always fascinated watching this for the first time with what's happening with their personal lives and what Sam's going through. And, this one ends with a cliffhanger because Sam gets a phone call. He answers it. And he says, Dad?
Dude, and it's a great cliffhanger because as soon as he popped up, I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's like, Dad? And he goes to black.
Yeah.
Like, you're watching that next episode.
Right.
Like, that's a Class A
right.
Class A cliffhanger.
And we haven't watched it yet, so I don't know what's going to happen.
I will say, technically, it was super fun to have Guy B here talking about how they shot that episode because it's a great episode of TV.
It really
is.
It's
scary as hell. Mm-hmm. It's well done. The guest stars are great. But what's fascinating is how clever Guy and the crew had to be to execute some of those scares.
Yeah.
To make them work. Because these are not all visual effects. A lot of these are in camera, which I did not know until he told us during the interview because I had assumed it was some new visual effect. But no, it's an in-camera trick. The episode is full of those, and that makes me like the episode even more.
Yeah, me too. And I loved what Todd had to say. I love the stories like with this one because of the quick turnaround. He only had like 4 hours to get the director edit.
You get 4 hours to do your 4-day cut.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love those kind of stories, and that's why I could talk to them forever. So great. I want to thank everyone for listening to the podcast.
Subscribe.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends. We're getting in there. We're getting in there. We're digging it up. We're digging up Supernatural, finding out what lies in the roots.
Just loving your arborist sort of analogy of the whole thing. I was sitting silently wondering where the hell you're going to go with that, and it didn't really go far.
It didn't go far, but I stayed with it. I
admire that.
Dirt and roots, and roots and dirt.
And with that, we leaf you.
Hey.
Subscribe to the podcast, pretty please. Listen, share it with your friends, and we love having you here. And come join us for the next one.
This episode stars Jared Padalecki as Sam Winchester, Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester.
The guest stars include Peter Benson as Officer Kelly, Norman Amore as Dr. Sanford Ellicott,
James Purcell as Dr. James Ellicott, Brooke Nevin as Catherine,
Nicholas DeGasto as Gavin, and Tom Pickett as Officer Daniel Gunderson.
Asylum was written by Richard Hatem and directed by Guy Norman B.
Love him or hate him, he did a good job with this episode. Edited by Anthony Pinker.
Music by Jay Gruska.
Executive produced by Eric Kripke and Robert Singer.
And it first aired November 22nd, 2005. This episode of Supernatural Then and Now was hosted and executive produced by Richard Speight Jr. and Rob Benedict.
Produced by Stephen Hine, written by Stephen Hine and Hada Holscher.
Audio engineering by Caitlin Holly.
And edited and associate produced by Trey Boudet.
Music provided by Tim Wynn.
Now.
Listen to that music.
I just love it.
The episode was recorded with the help of Sonic Fuel Studios.
This podcast is from Story Mill Media.
For news on this and other podcasts, follow Story Mill Media on Instagram and Twitter. Well, we have such a treat today. We've got a doubleheader of Yay! So, resuming, episode Asylum, episode 110. Sam and Dean catch wind of a cop and wife being killed.
Like gross wind? Like,
no, not a fart.
You guys all have the same tattoo on your butt cheek from whatever event.
It's more of a tramp stamp.
There are marks on somebody's butt cheeks.
Yeah.
Not ink, though.
We'll save that for another podcast.
No, this is good. This is good that we're doing this live. Live is good.
I did not do that. You did that. You're a child.
Wiener Shack.
Locations that were
Curse words.
Curse words.
Also Wiener Shack.
And
Also Wiener Shack.
there,
Other popular horror films that took place in a mental hospital.
It's a metal hospital. A lot of hospitals are made of brick or wood, but
This is
the
metal.
creepiest ones are metal. Who you texting?
You.
Weird.
Story Mill Media.